Ohayo gozaimasu. Good morning, my friend. Today we're going to go a bit more in depth into language learning skills and the method I'm using, which is called starting big. That's basically the scientific name for this method. And I want to go into the way how children learn languages. And I want to give a shout out to my son, Atlas. He's now commenting in my YouTube channel, and I'm happy that he likes the podcast. At this moment, I only have an audience of 5 or 6 people. I don't even know who the others are. And to be honest, at this early stage, I think the quality of my podcast is not fantastic yet. Therefore, I don't really deserve a large audience. Instead, this is my learning by doing process. Just like learning Japanese, initially the skill is very low, but every day I want to improve a little bit. And maybe in 6 months' time, when my Japanese is better, my ability to do a podcast is also better. Who knows? All right, let's start today. Today is all about how a human actually learn a language and why I'm using the scientific method of starting big to learn Japanese. First of all, a baby, when it was born, it had an immersion of 9 months in the tummy of the mother. It had 9 months of input, audio input, vibrational input from the mother for the mother tongue. And then when it's out, it's exposed to the environment. And that environment could be a monolingual or bilingual or trilingual environment. It depends where the baby grows up. So the first 6 months to 12 months of the life of the baby is incredibly important because that's the time when the brain of the child is starting to get used to the sound, noises, visual environment around him. And the brain is a survival machine. And in the process of trying to survive, the brain is creating endless amount of new connections to decipher the language pattern that the parents are using, the environment are using. So here I want you to take a look at the screen. I put in a screenshot, a video called The Bilingual and Monolingual Baby Brain Differ in Response to Language by UW Labs. This is a very good video. It's a bit old, but it's still very, very good. This is a woman who does scientific study on babies, basically measure the brain response of monolingual and bilingual babies to see how the brain reacts to different sound. Those are babies who can't speak yet. They cannot speak yet. They only had input. They haven't had any output yet. So they're using brain scanner to check how does the baby react to the different sound of different languages. And it turns out, not surprisingly, if the baby is exposed to bilingual environment, the brain is automatically set to decipher the sound coming from the 2 different languages. And it's monolingual, then it's only focused on the one sound. And how do I transition this over to my situation? Let me start out with an anecdote. My son, when he was 3 months old, he started speaking single words. 6 months, simple sentences. At 1 year, he was able to form full, very well understood sentences. He can express himself at the age of 1. So a lot of people back then, when they saw it, they wonder, oh, is this a wonder child or was this a prodigy or whatever? That's actually not really the case. Every child can do that. And the reason is simple, because consciously, I set up the environment for him to experience the language in the biggest possible way. What do I mean by that? Most parents, when they have a newborn baby, they like to talk to the baby in the simplest possible language, like almost like a dumbed down version of your mother tongue. So I insisted that in our household, when we talk to our son, we had to speak full sentences like an adult. We treated him like an adult from day 1 since his birth. So what happens is his brain is exposed to correct grammar and correct full sentences in the English language. May not be the best accent, but that doesn't really matter. He was exposed to the full-size English language, let's call it that way. And he had the opportunity to use his own brain to decipher the language he received. So when you receive full sentences as a baby, you automatically processing this information and decipher the language to your best possible ability. And once the speaking ability of the tongue and the throat and the voice band and so on start to develop, they will try to imitate whatever they can make sound of. So the understanding part is the first step. The audio exposure is incredibly important. It has to happen in the context, of course, usually in the context of food and play. And the same thing now applies to adult learning language. We adults actually learn language wrongly. This is my current assumption. I believe currently the way we learn language as adults is not natural. That's not how our brain works. Just like the baby didn't learn the language by learning only one word at once, instead it was being given full sentences, and the baby decides which word it wants to learn first, then which one to learn second, what is the grammar like, and all this is learned automatically by context. So the same thing happens in adult language learning. If we learn language based on, like, say, alphabet, then words, then grammar, then sentences, then full sentences, then context, then you're getting everything backwards. Our brain is very, very good at decipher a puzzle, because a new language is like a puzzle. And the bigger the puzzle, the more interesting it is. So scientifically, this is called starting big. The method is called starting big. And it's been pretty well researched by language researchers. And there's a paper written here. I will put it on the screen. There are papers written about this method, the advantage of starting big. What it does is this. When I immerse myself for 6 hours a day in the Japanese language, the full Japanese language, with context, with interesting content, with movies, travel videos, interesting cartoons, that kind of things. What my brain does is, during the daytime when I'm exposed to it, it takes in the information. But the real learning actually does not happen while I'm taking the information in, because our brain is actually pretty bad at multitasking. So when we are taking the information in, that is the input. And the actual rearranging the information and starting to make sense of it happens while you're resting, when you're taking a break, particularly when you're sleeping, when you're dreaming. That is when the brain actually go into overdrive mode, try to figure out what those noises are that it received from the day. So while you are sleeping, that's the time you're learning. The closest comparison to that is the physical exercise. Most people would know by now there are 3 components to muscle building. Number 1 is exercise, number 2 is nutrition, and number 3, the most important part, is sleep. Your muscle is not built in sleep. So the same thing with language learning. The neural pathways are not built for the new language while you are learning. Because while you are learning, you're using existing pathways to take in the information and decipher the code. And the actual processing and rearranging the new code happens while you're sleeping. So that's the reason the sleep is so important. Last but not least, I want to mention diet. Eat a lot of fish while you're learning a language is incredibly helpful. So I just want to put this out there for anybody who is interested in learning a difficult language. I understand the different approach, why this is science-based, not some random choice was made. Okay, thanks a lot. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.